Stay tuned to the end of this video for a word to our patron. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Let's Talk FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll that 5-star. Today we have a limited archer coming forth to destroy the demons. It's time for Durga, and maybe a little bit of Kali, but mostly Durga. But are they really that different? Anyway, this is your first time watching Wanted. This is a show where we talk history, folklore, mechanics, and more. And it used to have more of a Wild West theme, but you like thumbnails in color better, I guess. Anyway, just slight alerts. Not any major ones, but there will also probably be some slight spoilers for Paper Moon in here if you're not caught up on the Ordeal Call yet. Check it out. But otherwise, let's get into it. So, starting at the history section, Durga is a very major Hindu goddess. She's a goddess of strength, protection, power, and motherhood. Durga is generally considered to be the primary aspect of Mahadevi, the great mother goddess, kind of a primordial representation of lots of other major goddesses whose other aspects includes Parvati, Lakshmi, Sarasvati, Gayatri, and Radha. Durga's name literally means impassable or invincible, but could also be read as beyond defeat. Very intimidating. Her other epithets include Great Delusion, the Great Demoness, She Who Dwells in the Mountains, and One Who Eliminates Suffering. Despite all this, physically, Durga is usually depicted as a motherly, mature woman, riding a tiger, but sometimes a lion, usually a tiger though, who possesses many arms which wield a variety of weapons to slay demons. She is seen as a force to defeat evil and preserve Dharma, to punish the wicked and bring liberation to the oppressed, and she is often favored at times around the spring and autumn harvests. There are a lot of still occurring festivals to Durga. For those of you who in the West think of, myths and religion as this thing that's only done by people who are dead. The most common legend of Durga is their slaying of Mahisha Asura, a great buffalo Asura. So, the short version of his backstory is Mahisha Asura does some penance for the Brahma. Brahma is pleased and grants him a boon. You really should be more suspicious about this one. This one's going to come back. But Mahisha Asura asks to be only killed by a woman. Originally, he asked to be invincible, but Brahma's like, nah, everybody's gotta die someday, bud. And so he's like, okay, in that case, make it so I can't be killed by a man. Now, since he is an Asura, the enemy of the Devas, he, attacks the Devas led by Indra, forces them to flee their homeland because he can't be killed. So the gods pool their power together to manifest the goddess Durga. In some sects or different tellings, she is specifically a manifestation of the power of Vishnu, so she's considered Vishnu's younger sister, but there are several different variations on exactly how this goes about. So the Devas then arm Durga with all of their divine implements, which is why she bears so many weapons. So this often includes, the chakram, the conch, bows and arrows, swords, javelins, the Trishula trident, shields, mace, a lotus flower, and a noose. She's got it all. Everything's in there. She then battles Mahisha Asura, who attempts to fight her in a variety of forms, but ultimately he's killed in his shape as a buffalo. Now, in some tellings, it is specifically said that this battle between Durga and Mahisha Asura took place over 9 days, and that Durga used 9 forms herself, which are collectively worshipped as one single entity, which is also 9 entities, the Navadurga. These different forms include the Daughter of the Mountain, her childhood phase, which is said to be the same as Parvati, the Mother of Devotion, which is her aspect as an ascetic, the Destroyer of Demons, and the Goddess of the Cosmic Egg. Both are associated with Shakti. We'll come back to that one in a second. But also, other forms include the Goddess of Motherhood, the Goddess of Power, the Goddess of Courage, the Goddess of Beauty, and the Goddess of Supernatural Powers, Siddhis. So, as you can see, Durga herself has a lot of multiform aspects, probably to take on the fact that she has multiple implements and is kind of the Deva's Swiss Army knife goddess. But this means that depending on your exact text source or sect, Durga and Parvati are either literally the same person, Parvati just puts on her war face and gets called Durga, or you can say that they are the same divinity just on different days or wearing different hats. When she is being war, she is Durga. When she is being beauty, she is Parvati, etc. sort of thing. And this takes us to, where then does enter Kali? Kali is another very important, powerful goddess in the Hindu faiths and mythologies. She represents concepts such as death, destruction, and time, all very big ones. Her name means the Dark One, and it's also kind of got the same etymology as the word time. There is a homonym in there, but based on, the fairly surface-level research that goes into Wanted, I don't hit up the research library for these. So if you want to know more, you should hit up the research library. But that's probably not the actual etymology of her name. It's probably not literally synonymous with time. They just happen to sound similar. It's kind of like the Kronos conflation, one with a K, one with a CH. The actual Greek god Kronos, the, father of Zeus, is probably not actually associated with time. His name just happened to have been spelled similarly to the concept of time, and so they got conflated later. But that said, she is still also called the Dark Mother, and she who rules over time. The time stuff is still added later. Kali can also be kind of regarded as an aspect or a form of Shakti, literally meaning power or energy, which is a kind of like all-encompassing female divinity or feminine energy, which is the source of the power for all the major male gods, such as Shiva, but can also take the form of a great mother goddess. So Shakti or Mahashakti can be an entity, as we would call it, like a singular thing, or she can kind of be more like a force that is represented by feminine counterparts to male gods. In this way, Kali is considered the principal, the first of 10 goddesses known as the Mahavidya, the Great Wisdoms, but in this sense, she is also a manifestation of the same force as Durga and Parvati, and can also fall into the role of the triumvirate goddesses, and in which case she is Mahakali, the destroyer, the great destroyer, who comes after the creator, Mahaswarati, and the preserver, Mahalakshmi. So, lots of trifolds. Kali herself could be considered a triptych with Durga and Parvati. She herself is part of a triptych, but also she's part of a series of 10. Durga is part of a series of 9. Lots of numeral things going on here. But generally, again, depending on your exact textual source and your interpretation of, scripture and theology, it's goddesses all the way down. Kali is usually depicted as having blue skin, red eyes, and having multiple arms. Not always quite as many as Durga, but plenty of arms. She wields a sword, and she's also usually holding a severed head with a cup underneath it to catch the blood. And also, she's usually seen wearing a necklace of human skulls. She's wearing a tiger skin. Very fierce, terrifying, often intimidating, very striking. But that's also very memorable. Kali is very widely known and sometimes misunderstood. I think less so in the modern than in the historical for this. That said, she still, as I mentioned before, can be considered a mother goddess in her own right. Kali's most famous origin story, though, is usually directly tied to Durga or Parvati. It concerns the Asura Raktabija. Raktabija is granted a boon from Shiva. Guys, we really need to stop doing this for the Asuras. Where if a single drop of blood spills from his body, if it falls from his body and hits the ground, countless Raktabijas will spring forth from it. So, as part of their ongoing efforts to get the Asuras out of their house, Durga and a collection of mother goddesses assisting her are trying to drive them all out, and they keep hitting Raktabija, so the battlefield is soon littered with his duplicates. So, depending on the exact telling, Durga either consciously decides to create Kali by just going, I've got this, or she just gets so pissed off at Raktabija that Kali just kind of spontaneously forms from her forehead. But Kali then kills all the Raktabijas, she drinks their blood so fast it can't spill on the ground, and just straight up starts eating his duplicates. She goes absolutely beast mode, and the Asura is defeated. Again, depending on the exact text source, we've got a couple of these, but Kali could also be formed directly from Parvati, or she could be from another goddess called Kaushiki, who herself is formed from Parvati. It can go a couple layers deep, but it's usually linked to either Durga or Parvati, who are sometimes the same. But basically, the origin is all the same. They battle the Asuras, the original goddess gets so annoyed that either she literally becomes dark, her face becomes flush dark in color, and becomes Kali, or their anger just kind of manifests outside them as Kali. Anyway, as a result of all her victories, Kali is usually depicted as flying into a kind of joyful rage. She keeps dancing, cavorting, and her desire to keep fighting and killing demons gets so strong that it's basically threatening to destroy the whole world. After some other trial and error, the other gods can't really figure out a way to calm her down, so Shiva assembles a brilliant plan, which is to go to the battlefield and lay down so that Kali steps on him. Realizing that she's stepping on her consort or opposite, Kali becomes embarrassed and stops rampaging. So yes, indeed, that means that Shiva's plan was, step on me, ma'am. And this worked. The legend of Kali kind of rampaging around and destroying things and having to be stopped does share some similarities with a couple of other cultures' mythologies. The easiest parallel to draw is probably from the Egyptian, the deliverance of mankind from destruction. Ra dispatches his eye as Sekhmet, the warrior goddess, to destroy mankind for plotting against him. But even when we realize that this has gone too far and Ra tries to reel her back in, Sekhmet is beyond control. They calm her down by making her drink beer that they've dyed red to look like blood, so she falls asleep and she reverts to becoming Hathor, another major and powerful goddess in the Egyptian pantheon who is most prominently associated with motherhood, but is associated with a lot of things. And there's also a Ugaritic myth of the warrior goddess Anat, who goes wild attacking warriors, collecting their heads and hands, and, putting them around her neck and waist, similar to depictions of Kali. There's no, clean, solid link in these myths, but they have enough similarity that there could be some crossover. Kali and Durga are both very old goddesses. For Durga specifically, her names and epithets come from as early as 600 CE, and there are even earlier examples of hymns and depictions of a tiger riding war goddess. And as I said before, there are still some major festivals about Durga. The biggest one, I think, is Durga Puja. That will be this year in September, late September to October, if you're curious. And in a bit of a turn for more recent Wanteds, I actually do have some Fate-specific lore to talk about as well. Because Durga's been kind of lurking in the backdrop of the Fate franchise for a long time. In Fate Extra CCC, Durga is one of the composite deities which makes up the High Servant Passion Lip. The other two components of her, besides, the BB parts, are Parvati and Brunhilde. This does mean that every Servant Passion Lip is based on is now playable. And if you're curious, the aspect specifically that Lip got from Durga is her divine weapons. These manifest as Passion Lip's giant destructive hands. The 10 fingers is supposed to represent the 10 weapons. But, again, depending on the depiction, Durga can actually have the variety of different numbers. But in FGO itself, Durga was also already foreshadowed, and this is why you should make sure to catch up on your main interludes. But Parvati appears in Okyu, using the appearance of Lady Kasuga. She says that she's the one best suited to deal with Kamamara, using Sakuramato as a vessel, but she could have just as easily manifested as Durga or Kali. And basically, in Fate, Durga and Parvati, and by extension Kali, all kind of basically share the same divine core. They have different saint graphs. They're all the same goddess, Parvati, Durga, Kali, but in order to be servants, they must kind of clearly partition their power and use a human vessel. Divine spirits aren't supposed to manifest as summonable servants normally, so they manifest as separate entities, even if they share the same big O origin. We, in Fate, like to clearly partition different authorities, and while there is some overlap, they also do fulfill different myths and rules. Now, Durga is an archer because she can wield a variety of divine weapons at range, but it is explicitly noted that she is the rare case of an all-rounder. She could fulfill the role of any of the original 7 classes because she has mastery over so many divine implements. Yes, even Caster. I'm sure there's some magic stuff she's got in there. And she even has a mount, her White Tiger, so that would work for Rider as well. So yes, this is a rare case where she would qualify for any of the 7. Now then, what is Kali's role in this? Well, she's basically another manifestation of Durga or Parvati, so you should probably consider her a naturally formed alter ego. She is a personification of Durga's fury made into a person. She is the manifestation of fury itself. And Durga herself is already an instrument of divine wrath or justice, so Kali is just like the I'm so absolutely mad at this guy, manifestation. Also, want to throw this out there, obviously, they could have just kept her looking like Sakura to mesh with Parvati, but I also think that Durga using Sakuramato as a base works because Sakura herself can be kind of a complex character. She's multifaceted in her different appearances across the franchise. Parvati as the goddess of beauty kind of shows her gentler side. Durga could be a manifestation of her being more serious. Sakura does have a serious side. You don't get to see it a lot, but it does happen. And in the narrative, when talking about, Parvati into Durga into Kali, kind of, manifestation the layers, I feel like FGO kind of compares Kali to Dark Sakura, which it is kind of like that, but also I think Kali just kind of works as a natural accumulation of Sakura/Durga's fury. Sakura does have a little bit of a temper when she gets going, and there are times when she will, like I said, take things seriously. The actual synergy with the Dark Sakura, the fuck it we ball one, is really Kamamara, which is probably why, Kama as a character has such distinction from Parvati and Durga, and by extension Kali, because Dark Sakura and Sakura are almost two different characters in fighting game terms. They're the same person, but they're not. Y'all know what I mean. Real ones know. Anyway, as usual with this stuff, I like to make lots of comparisons back to Fate Stay Night and talk about funny class stuff. So, as a Lancer, Parvati, as Sakura, is strong against Ishtar, who is Rin, but weak to Muramasa, who is Shiro. But Durga gets to reverse this. She's strong against Muramasa, but is weak to Ereshkigal, and is tied with Ishtar, the original Rin face. But she's also weak to herself as Parvati. You can interpret that one a lot of ways, that, the kind of, serious mode, no-nonsense Sakura will fall to her own, gentler self. But also, there's a very funny thing going on, which basically Durga puts herself now into a triangle with Medusas and future Medusas. Medusiana, the young Medusa, the Lancer one, beats Durga, but would be strong against Saber Medusa, who is, kind of an indeterminate age. They describe her as appearing older than Sakura, older than definitely her Lancer self, but not quite the same level of age where she's her rider self. And Saber Medusa being strong against Parvati could be interpreted a couple of ways. Anyway, Durga debuts in Ordeal Call number 1, Paper Moon. I won't spoil her actual circumstance, but if you're even passingly familiar with Fate and watching this video, you see that she is an archer. Paper Moon is set during a Grail War. You can hopefully do some basic math here. Also, is a little rare that I get to say this, but Durga should have a interlude coming up next year as well, so there'll be a little more on that note. So let's move to mechanics. So, the mechanics. Durga is an SSR, a 5-star archer. And compared to similar units, she's definitely on the higher attack, lower HP side of the spread. And in fact, if you do want to be exact, she is the archer with, at least last time I checked, the highest attack period. And she's tied in the 4th rank overall for highest servant attack. She's in the same slot as KP and Bazette. Durga is QQ, 2 quicks, 2 arts, 1 buster. Solid hit counts and thus low NP gain. It's only 0.3, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem for reasons we'll get into. I think the FGO team is becoming aware of how easy it is for us to do NP gain. So her Noble Phantasm is AoE Arts. It gives her 50% damage versus Heaven attribute first for 1 turn. It inflicts defense down by 20% for 3 turns after. And the Overcharge effect is bonus damage versus the demonic trait. That's right, double damage bonus. And they're technically 2 separate effects. So, because one is the damage up buff and the other is increased damage on NP. The NP, raw damage is higher based on overcharge level. So if you have somebody who is Heaven demonic, you do lots of extra damage. Her first skill is 50% battery. It also gives the whole squad +1 overcharge level for 1 time 3 turns. But yeah, 50 battery on an arts archer. Who could have guessed? Second skill is a amazing 3/3 invul. That's 3 hits, 3 turns. And also 10 to 20% on all 3 card types for 3 turns. She stole Emiya's projection, or at least his early version. God, old school Emiya wishes he has invul for 3 turns on his projection. Not that switching NP now isn't great, but But her final skill is a 20 to 30% NP damage up, and a Pierce invul for 1 turn, and it makes all of her command cards arts for 1 turn too. Once again, this is why her NP gain is low. So you can just brute force art chains with her for a turn. Not that you'll want to do that exactly, because it is only 1 turn, but you've got some options there. And she has a lot of passives. Her passives are Magic Resistance A, Riding A, so those 2 quick cards are going to do a lot for both Stargen and NP gain. Independent Action C for a little bit of crit. She has the Goddess Core passive, which gives her damage plus and even more debuff resist. So since she already has MRA, Magic Resistance A, this means that with that and her Goddess Core, her default is over 40% just all the time. In case you were wondering during a certain boss fight why some of your debuffs didn't stick. And she also has a unique passive which gives her bonus arts damage and more crit. It's 10% arts and 10% crit damage, so with independent action that's 16% free damage on criticals, and her arts cards are just as extra juiced as her quick cards. We are bringing the juice to a divine spirit here. And in case all that didn't make it clear, Durga's role in your team should be pretty obvious. She exists to kill demons. And what are demons with trash mobs? She'll kill them. She has double bonus damage, she has a 50% battery, she's got multiple damage steroids. If your enemies survive 1 NP, they get defense down to lead into the next one, so she's good at farming. Lots of mobs have the demonic trait. It's, I think, one of the most common traits in FGO. I think at one point it was the most common. I don't know if that's actually true right now, but it's very common. And Heaven is also a super common attribute. And she can also slap some bosses because she's got the grind game with the defense down and stuff. And also a powerful tool for Pierce, even though it's only 1 turn, and has crazy good defenses. I'll remind you, I said 3 hits, 3 turns invul. Spicy. It is on a 6-turn cooldown, but you can make that work. For team comp, it should be pretty straightforward. She's arts, she wants to gain NP. Who gives you arts NP? Castoria. Double Castoria or even single Castoria plus her own battery. You'll be looping arts NP like nobody's business. You'll also be getting valuable attack ups off that, and another new trait damage, though threat to humanity is not as much as we'd like. But you do get some other funny stuff in there. like an increased NP gain and also a second backup invul. But since she has her own battery, you can also have some fun too in your team comp. You don't need to go 100%. So you can throw Tamo in there for more damage steroids, healing, and even a cooldown reduction, which is very valuable because all of Durga's minimums should be 6 turns, which is a little long. So winding that down to 5 or less can be helpful. And like I said, she does have lower HP, so the healing will not go amiss. Lady Avalon out here, being a pretender, which means you should have some positive class advantage also, has the chance to give Durga even more crits for follow-up and more defenses. You could throw in John to stall this out. John's, team also has a team-wide debuff clear and has, stuns and star generation. And basically, if you keep Durga alive, she'll keep firing her NP. This becomes a grind set game because she's got the 20% down. Bring anybody in the blue crew. Bring single targets if you have to. That can be a great use to, do an AONP, kill ads, and set up the boss damage so that a single target can take advantage of that 20% def down with some stuff. Or take Super Orion as an honorary single target. His NP's blue, right? And who wouldn't want free overcharge on his NP? Now for craft essences, she has the battery, so the tried and true strat, as brain dead as it is going to be to give herself a 50% charge and get started. You should know the classics if you've been listening to these videos for a while, and if you're relatively new to FGO, I'll list them. Golden Sumo, Dive to Blue, anything that starts with 50% is good. If you're a newer player and you don't have some of those, in general, just emphasize on attack up, arts up, NP up, and crit up, probably in that order. She can definitely utilize critical damage, especially because she's got some passive gain there, but that is going to be at the bottom of your order. You're mostly just going to make her overall attack even higher because it's so big, and then just add extra damage to her arts and NP levels. And of course, if you're just double casting, you're double castoriing, you can probably get away with a Black Grail and crank the damage and just try and loop, but you might have some other funny ideas too. Like I said, she has an inherent one-turn pierce, she's got some hard defenses, you may try and bring her to, farm out boss fights, grind them out, so there's probably some other fun stuff you can do with the craft essences. And now for what I call other stuff. Mats. Materials. Have some slightly bad news. It's not the Vestiges, which are the new bronze mat, but Durga does need brand new mats. To ascend, she's going to need 12 of the Ether Photons. You should get that just from clearing the Paper Moon, but still, you're going to need them. And she does need 24 per skill, so keep that in mind. That's the new silver mat. Also, didn't mention it in the story parts, but this is a technical kind of mechanical thing. Her third ascension should be locked to Paper Moon clearance for a little bit. It's not even like you can't see the art. You will not actually be able to access it and her third skill until you complete the story. This does get reversed in, I think, a month or two, but it is something that those of you who are rolling who haven't completed the Paper Moon will need to keep an eye out for. Now for banners, Durga is a limited unit, and so far her banners are a little scarce, but we should have still some opportunities upcoming. So she's going to be released with Ordeal Call 1's third banner. That's the one that's coming out, probably literally launched as this video is premiering on YouTube. In the pre-release for Ordeal Call 2, she'll have a banner along with a couple of other servants. And also, obviously, this current year in the JP server, they've been doing weekly campaigns, so she's in the weekly Archer campaign, and we can also know that presumably when they do the Grand Duel campaign for Archer, she will also have another raid up, because they just did that with Saber. That will probably be next month if I had to guess at the rate they're going. But after that, kind of a shrug. That said, as a recent and limited unit, she will be featured in every Lucky Bag summoning campaign from here on as well, so you will have multiple opportunities on that one to try and catch her. But that's about it. I stick my tongue out at thee. I gotta get back to Clear Obscure and some other stuff. But we'll run it. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Had a great time with the Ordeal Call. If you want to know more, check out our podcast, Let's Talk FGO. We got into the story a little bit, but didn't get as far because of notes formatting. We will have a more traditional recap episode, which will probably go all the way to the end this upcoming week. So check that out. Check out our podcast feed. And that's it. If you're watching this on YouTube, give us a like. If you have any comments, leave them in the comment section down below. You can also join our Discord. Discord link should be in the description. We have a dedicated rolling thread, a little rolling channel on Discord. You can post your roll results, good or bad. We'd love to see you there. And if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell button, consider joining our channel memberships button. That is actually a join button. And, of course, you can consider supporting us on Patreon, like some people I will mention right after the outro. But also, just, as an aside, Lucky's going to be aiming for Durga, so you want to fire any of your, super thanks, your patron contributions down there. Wish him luck. Go for it.
as we get out of this video, I would like to remind you this episode is brought to you by all of our patrons, but especially Adam DeHart, Blank Sto G, Call Me Zed, Carlos, Dragon, JD1000, Chris Starlight, Legendary Boss Hunter, Rise of Kenji, Rogue Robin, Shervor, and Varian the Crow. If you like what we do and want to see us do more, support us on Patreon.